Hello everybody, thank you and welcome back. So I would just like to reiterate a little bit on what Kim and Lucia had talked on in regards to lesson content or about schools in general. So I have been working with people with learning disabilities for 20 years now. For the last 5 years, I have been working predominantly in secondary and primary schools in Torfaen and the Caerphilly Borough, working mostly one-to-one with pupils who have got special educational needs or pupils who have behavioural problems and they need a one-to-one. So for 5 years now, I've been working in schools, but for the last 12 months, I have massively seen a big presence of gender ideology and LGBT plus resources. So I would just like to, as quickly as I can, explain some of these to you. I am not fully ready to disclose which schools I have seen these in, but if any of you are concerned, I am happy for you to email publishchildprotectionwales.org and I will give you information. But I will publicly disclose these schools as and when I feel is appropriate. So some of the things that I've seen in schools personally is, in particular, the well-being areas of schools are very LGBT focused. There are lots of flags. There are lots of posters around the schools regarding pronouns. We've just had LGBT Pride Month, so we've had lots of posters with flags, with gender, not just gender, just identity in general. And I feel we're getting very confused between what is sex and what is now being called gender, and what gender appears to be personality. Whether your personality is very masculine, very feminine, or whatever those stereotypes are. So I'm seeing lots of posters in schools, ask me your pronouns, tell me your pronouns, the flags. But I've also been a part of some RSE lessons, and I do want to disclose one in particular, which was for learning disabilities. This was a learning disability base. None of these children will ever be in a mainstream class because these children have profound and severe learning disabilities. And I don't want to say I had the pleasure, because it was not a pleasure. It was uncomfortable. It was, I can't even describe it. Anyway, this particular lesson was about STDs, sexually transmitted diseases. These children were year 9 with some year 8 pupils in this class. We are being told constantly that this education is developmentally appropriate, age appropriate. I can guarantee that this lesson these children were learning was the same lesson that year 9 pupils are supposed to be learning in mainstream school. Because this was not an SEN lesson. These children were taught about sexually transmitted diseases. They were shown pictures of penises and vulvas, vaginas, which had various warts, herpes, gonorrhea, syphilis. But not only that, these children were then told how these transmitted diseases were passed. Oral sex, so they were told that people may suck on another penis, that someone may put a penis into a child's, into a bum, anus. These children that I was sat with in this lesson were disgusted. They had their hands over their eyes. They were saying, I'm traumatized. I don't want to learn this. And I sat there dumbfounded while this teacher said, oh, stop being silly. this is necessary, this is information that you should learn. If any of these children were engaging in sexual activities, it needed to be investigated immediately. Even if these children were 16 plus, this lesson, it would need to be investigated, because these children are not capable of informed consent when it comes to sexual activity. There was no point in this lesson where these children taught that it was illegal for children under age 16 to engage in sexual activities. At no point were these children taught the consequences of what would happen if they engaged in any of these sexual activities. Instead, these children sat there with their eyes behind their hands, embarrassed. They were disgusted. And this is what we are teaching. That was not developmentally appropriate. None of these children were assessed. This was a SEN class, and they should not have been told these things. Not without the consequences and not without the laws that applied to this. So, as somebody who was personally experienced in Torfaen, in Caerphilly, some of these lessons that are being taught, I can wholeheartedly say what you have just learned in terms of lesson content is not to be taken lightly. After this, now, we do have some very uncomfortable footage to show you. Kim is going to discuss the legislation, how we've got here, not the legislation, the responses from the government that we've been given so far. How everything has been played down. But this is happening, and I can say this as somebody who is standing and working in your children's classrooms. I can tell you this is very much happening in Wales. This is very much happening in Torfaen. This is very much happening in Newport. This is very much happening in Caerphilly. This is very much happening in Wales. So, please listen carefully to everything that Kim and Lucia have to say next. And again, our website, www.publicchildprotection.org, and our email, admin@publicchildprotectionwales.org. Please, any questions, and I will disclose, if you ask personally, what schools, in particular the one for the SEN lessons, I will disclose that. I'm just not ready to do it on a public platform yet. Thank you very much.
So before we go on to the third part, I just want to say, so as you can see, Adele works in a school. We do have skills and qualifications that allow us to speak on this issue, and that is why the government will not let us in. I have begged time and time and time again to be sat on that table for the sexual safeguarding within schools. They will not allow it. You tell me why they will not allow somebody with 24 years criminal justice life experience, 12 years academia, and I am an expert in institutional child sex abuse. You tell me why the government would not want that expertise on this safeguarding procedure. It's insane, isn't it? So, go on, no, sorry, Olivia.
Okay, so first, can everyone hear me okay? Yeah, okay, because I thought I might have messed up my microphone. Okay, so now for the third part of our presentation. So here we see a load of rainbow flags. We are told time and time again that this education is about inclusivity and acceptance. We are told that it's about inclusivity for all. And if you do check out any of the documents, it does say including gay, lesbian, bisexual, blah, blah, blah. So, yeah, they are talking about inclusivity. But are they talking about inclusivity of all? Well, not really, because parents aren't allowed. Parental opinion does not matter here. Religion, well, it actually goes against religious beliefs, this education, you know, where it talks about positive attitudes to being promiscuous. It goes against every religion out there. And when it talks about inclusivity, are they talking about people, disabled people, people with additional needs? No, they're not. All this education focuses on are people who have got a gay, lesbian, queer, trans, anyone that belongs to the LGBTQ plus family. Oh, okay, sorry.
Except for Dan here, I just want to say Dan here is our policy and funding executive. And he's not going to mind me saying this, but he actually is a gay man. So we are a mixed group. We do have LGBT amongst our group. We also have a teenager with body dysmorphia as well. So we are very much real, everyday, common sense people. That's why the government don't like us. And that's why Dan shouted out. So as Lucia said, this is supposed to be inclusive. Parents don't have a say. Religion doesn't have a say. Disability, as you've just heard from Adele, you know, they just tough luck. They just get what's given. But these guys here, they have plenty to say, don't they? We've got the Welsh Government. We've got Stonewall, heavily funded, with an undisclosed figure, I might add. The government will not disclose how much funding these people get. Then we get this guy up here in the far left, Peter Tatchell. Does anyone know Peter Tatchell?
Boo, indeed.
Right,
yeah.
so we'll be hearing a lot about Peter Tatchell, don't you worry about that. Peter Tatchell campaigned for us to lose our parental opt-out. Peter Tatchell has written articles in support of PI, paedophile information exchange. He has some questionable ideas. Then we've got this lady here then, on the far right, that is a lady. Her name is Professor Emma Reynolds, the disgraced Professor Emma Reynolds. So this lady comes from Cardiff University. She is the queer theorist. So her work is based on queer theory. So that's where all this queer stuff is coming from. Professor Emma Reynolds was busted last October. So the Safe Schools Alliance got hold of her work. A report was published. She was disgraced. Her resources have been taken off the hub. And the Welsh Government are denying any involvement there. They were on the hub until she was caught out. Professor Emma Reynolds has now gone underground. All her social media has been removed. However, her agenda, sex education packs, are being used globally. It's being used as activism packs for teenagers in America. And this guy in the middle here, this is my favourite. Mr. Ian Timbrell. Mr. Ian Timbrell is dressed there for his 8-year-olds in school. This lesson is on gender stereotyping. Mr. Timbrell has written blogs on us, calling us radicals. So one of these blogs came my way one day, and I ended up on his Twitter, and I approached it from a common sense approach, you know. We all want the same thing, we want children safe. I said, our issue is the sex abuse in schools, the hidden sex abuse in schools. He wanted evidence. I sent him report after report after report. I sent him the freedom of information request from all police forces in Wales about sex abuse in our schools. Do you know what he did? He hid it. He blocked it. So the next I hear from Mr. Timbrell is on ITV. They've put him on an ITV news programme against me. Well, it didn't take people long to find this. This was Mr. Timbrell when he was deputy head teacher. He was deputy head teacher of a primary school up until last November. Mr. Timbrell now is an educational consultant who provides RSE resources, RSE training. He is making mega bucks, and he has actively hidden the sex abuse in our schools. Mr. Timbrell is now solely responsible for us petitioning Welsh Government for a full public inquiry into these organisations. So if you join me in giving Mr. Timbrell a round of applause, he deserves it. And now we're just going to take a closer look at Peter Tatchell. This is just a snippet from an interview. You can find this interview on YouTube. You can also find the articles he's written in the past as well. But this is Peter's idea on sex with children.
Filmmaker Derek Jarman, who sadly has died, he told me when he was about 50 that he had had sex with a young man when he was 9 years old. He said it was his choice. He said he wasn't pressured or manipulated. He said he had no regrets about that sexual experience. So my view is, that's what he's saying. If an adult person looks back on an early sexual experience and says they consented to it, they were not pressured, they were not harmed, they have no regrets or complaint, I think we should do the honest thing and accept their viewpoint.
And I think we should do the honest thing and say this man needs investigating. So he is the ambassador. So he is the ambassador for an organisation called Educate and Celebrate. They are very close with the Children's Commissioner in Southern Ireland. Educate and Celebrate is another sex education organisation, and here is just one of the books that they have published. This is called How to Transform Your School into an LGBT-Friendly Place. This was written by Dr. Ellie Barnes, MBE, and Dr. Anna Carlisle. Dr. Ellie Barnes is a liar. Dr. Ellie Barnes, throughout this book, has written the protected characteristics of the Equality Act. However, Dr. Ellie Barnes lies and says gender identity is a protected characteristic. This book is littered with false information. It is encouraging teachers to practice policies and legislation which simply does not exist. So I would advise you guys to look at these books for yourself. Now I'm going to take you forward now, because I really want you to see Dr. Ellie in action as well. So this is Dr. Ellie in a teachers' conference in Ireland.
This is a speech at the Irish National Teachers Organisation. Now, it was a while ago, 2020, but I thought I'd bring it to your attention if you haven't already seen it. Now, this is a Dr. Ellie Barnes, who is a MBE, of all things, and is the keynote speaker. Now, if you thought that schools were only just trying to remove parents for critical decisions and consultation, this will open your eyes to the subterfuge going on in our children's lives. This is in regards to CRT and gender and wokeism going into our children's curriculum. Now, this is, in my opinion, runs deep and should be addressed if you're a parent. And listen to this doctor, and I say that in air quotes, explain that parents would be angry, but Sodom.
So we've had to have parent consultations, and the only advice I can give you around that is don't send a letter home to say you're about to embark on this work. That's the worst thing you can do. Don't hold a parents' meeting. You don't want 30 parents shouting at you. Who wants that in your life? That's an awful thing to do.
Don't hold a parents' meeting. You don't want 30 parents shouting at you. Who wants that in your life? That's an awful thing to do.
So don't hold a parents' meeting. You don't want 30 angry parents at your door. Why would parents be angry? Why would parents be angry? Your parents shouldn't be angry with schoolwork where your teachers are being taught. So why would a parent be angry, Dr. Ellie? I want to go a step further with this Dr. Ellie, because as you know, she is a doctor, okay? So she's got a PhD. So she has to reference her work. She has to evidence her work. So I'd like to bring your attention now to this little part of her book. And it says, thankfully, it is no longer just me, Martin Navratilova and Larry Grayson, but assuredly a whole new visibility of queerness that is being embraced by schools and communities, and with good reason too. As around 10% of the population could potentially identify as LGBT. The famous sexuality statistician Kinsey established this figure in relation to gay men in 1948, but of course it's probably more, as he was not looking at women, bi or trans people. Dr. Ellie. He wasn't looking at anybody other than paedophiles and sex offenders. So this man studied, he's supposed to have studied homosexuality, and he produced this book, Sexual Behaviour in the Human Male. As you've seen, Dr. Ellie has just referenced this book. She didn't reference a section in this book, she referenced the whole book. So I'll just draw your attention to chapter 5. Sexual behaviour of the adolescents. Let's have a look at the first column there. Age, 5 months. Number of orgasms, 3. Age, 11 months. Number of orgasms, 10. This is in the space of 24 hours, mind. There's an entire chapter on the sexual abuse of children being paraded as research for homosexuality. This man has been exposed for who he is. There was a wonderful lady called Dr. Judith Reisman. She has exposed a lot for years. She's done a lot of work for the American government. She was also sued by Hugh Hefner for defamation of character against Alfred Kinsey, but they lost that case because what she revealed was the truth. So Dr. Ellie Barnes, the lady who is lying to all the teachers, promoting lies throughout the documentation, putting the government logo on, she references the work of Dr. Alfred Kinsey, and to the point she knows what population he studied. He didn't study lesbians, bi or trans, no. He studied paedophiles and sex offenders, and as a doctor and an academic, Ellie Barnes would know that. So this education hasn't come about on its own. It's come from three theories, okay? Sexual from birth, gender theory, and queer theory. Sexual from birth is the work of Alfred Kinsey, and sexual from birth is the work that we focus on more than anything. That's our field. So we'll just go into these now. So as we said, Dr. Alfred Kinsey was the man who did the research, and he claims we are sexual from birth. This is where you'll see, if I take you back to the UNESCO document, we have the ability to enjoy sexual experiences throughout our life. This is where that comes from. So you will also find as well in the World Health Organization document, Alfred Kinsey is not directly referenced, but his colleague John Bancroft is. So all of this goes back to Alfred Kinsey, the sexual from birth and the sexual pleasure.
Now moving on to the second point, which is gender theory. So gender theory it's basically a theory around children changing their gender. And this was founded by John Money. He actually, well, the story behind behind this, there was two twins, David Reamer and his twin brother. They both had a circumcision as babies. There was a medical issue that they had to have that. Unfortunately, David's circumcision went wrong, and this is where John Money got involved. John Money said that let's raise him as a girl, and just change his gender, raise him as a girl, he'll never know, and this is what he did. He encouraged the parents to do this. He regularly had the twins come over his house. Now, he's actually said that this particular circumstance was a success story. However, the two twins actually committed suicide in their 30s because of what they went through. The twins were actually made to do sexual acts on each other by this monster, Money. And also the one twin that was being brought up as a girl found out that he was actually a boy. He actually struggled being a girl because, innately he knew he was a boy. So even though he did transition back into a boy, both twins actually had led a life full of trauma. Now, this actual circumstance is a success story, and this is where gender theory is born, and this is now where gender changes in children are being encouraged based on this.
If you just do a Google search for John Money, David Reimer, you will see that the Reimer family came out and told the truth in the 90s. There are plenty of interviews, they did go public, but as Lucia said, it was too late. John Money had published this research as an absolute success. So how does this look in the classroom? 79 genders? According to the BBC, we got over 100 genders. Or the doctor guesses your gender at birth. This is the kind of thing that we are seeing within the classroom, and this is very, from a young age, if you look at the Welsh Government documentation as well, this is what they want from children aged 3. And then we move on to the queer theory. Now, a lot of people think being queer is cool, it's being hip, you're queer, yeah. No. It's an academic discipline. And it came from the work of, excuse me if I can't pronounce it, Michael Foucault. Somebody commented last time, So Michel Foucault as well, I think he was a French philosopher. He had very questionable sexual practices. He was allegedly a paedophile as well. So you get people referencing his work, the likes of Judith Butler and other academics, and then that brings you to our very own academic here, Professor Emma Reynolds, who is the queer theorist. So I'm just going to read you some things here now. Queer theory. What is queer theory? Well, queer theory is something that's not the norm. So as a child, I didn't necessarily play with dolls. I was into the boy stuff, so I would be labelled queer. But they don't just queer gender, you see. They want to queer all binaries. They want to queer everything in society. They even want to queer the binary between adult and child. And you'll see things in their work saying things like adult plus child equals okay. They openly speak about childhood innocence not being a thing. They believe childhood innocence is a myth. They believe children are equal to adults in every single way. So queering childhood involves not just the queering of sex, gender, and sexual binary oppositions, such as male, masculinity, female, femininity, and heterosexual, homosexual, but also the generational binaries between adult and child. And this is what she does. She brags. She brags that she's reached 3,000 children in this country, most of which are additional needs. She goes into these schools. So this is one of her lesson content. Draw around a body and then think about where on the body it feels nice to be touched. And how does that feel? So for example, having your head stroked, that might feel relaxing. And so just to kind of develop that vocabulary for talking about nice touch, pleasurable touch, and then also allowing young people to talk about different sexual practices, if that's what they want to talk about. Nothing is out of bounds, okay? And this is in their work. Nothing at all is out of bounds. Okay, so this is where things are going to get a little bit disturbing now. I have, from day one, even in the petition to the government, I would claim these were PI policies, paedophile information exchange. I even proved this in court as well, and you will also find a report published on the Safe Schools Alliance, which puts the UNESCO document, the World Health Organization document, right next to PI Manifesto, okay? So PI Manifesto of the 80s, you will see in that report, pieces from this document match their manifesto. And this is what I want to do now. I want to show you these policies in practice.
Adults would feel that a developed consideration for children would involve leaving children alone sexually to find their own way for themselves with their own peer groups and not with adults.
Yes, I would be all in favour of children finding their own way sexually, but I think also that adults have a part to play because children are one part of the whole society. It isn't the society where we separate children from adults.
What do you feel?
I feel that PI is not a procurement agency for children, never has been and never will be. Our political objectives include developing a society where children are given a much higher status than today, where they are recognised as individuals in their own right, and this includes recognising their right to certain sexual freedoms, whilst protecting them from the kind of criminal assaults which took place in Brighton.
But surely it's a question of recognising children's maturity, and how can you have an equal relationship, which is what I take a mature sexual relationship to be, between an adult and a child who is not mature in body, in mind, or personal awareness? It has to be unequal.
I don't accept that this concept of maturity at all. Adults, for instance, aren't necessarily mature. It's a long process.
Well, I take it for granted that no adult is probably ever mature, but nevertheless, my state of maturity, or your state of maturity, is clearly different from that of a child of 12. How can there be an equal relationship which allows of sex, which is usually a shocking experience for everybody at some time or another? How can you allow of an equal relationship between two people so unequally positioned at the starting off point?
I don't accept that sex is a spontaneously shocking experience. experience.
Well, I'm saying at some stage or other, there is an element of shocking sex.
Not if children are properly educated about sex, and it's an obligation on society to see that children are given a far more comprehensive sexual education from a far earlier age.
But in that case, they find it out, they discover this with people of their own age and in their own time. And it is the question of inequality, which I come back to, which I think you have an answer.
Indeed, by your lights, the relationship is unequal in the same way that a teacher-child relationship is unequal, in the same way that a parent-child relationship is unequal.
The teacher's not exploiting the child's sex.
And nor is a pedophile. Pedophiles do not exploit children. Child
Pedophiles
molesters
are using
may.
the child's sexuality.
No, pedophiles do not use a child's sexuality. Pedophiles develop a mutual sexuality with the child. It's an entirely reciprocal relationship.
But you can't say that because of this business of immaturity and the inequality of the relationship.
Yes, but the definition of maturity is yours. We don't share it.
Well, what is your definition of maturity in this context? So how can a child of 12 make a mature judgment about something like sex for the first time, which it has not the first idea about, and cannot possibly weigh the consequences of it?
You're imputing to a sexual relationship heavy judgmental issues which
I'm talking about the physical and psychical response.
Yes. A child is able to recognise a pleasurable experience. He is able to recognise a pleasing emotional experience. He is able to express consent and to recognise that this is something he wishes to continue. And a responsible, caring paedophile it always refers to the wishes of the child.
But even today, Tom O'Carroll argues he and other paedophiles should be allowed to have sex with children.
You keep saying, by the way, sex with children. It's not sex with children. It's sex, most people think, is sexual intercourse, penis in vagina, and a guy banging away until he gets orgasm. That's not what I mean by sex with children.
What are you talking about?
And I don't think we should talk in this sort of emotive fashion about sex with children.
What is a less emotive term?
Erotic contact with children.
And what would that involve?
Well, it might involve touching or masturbation.
In the warped view of the paedophile information exchange, the only harm caused by an adult having sex with a child occurs later, when the child is supposedly made to feel guilty about it.
If they were traumatised, they wouldn't have gone along.
You see, that's another lie that paedophiles spin. They say that the kids aren't traumatised.
No, wait a moment.
Believe me, they are traumatised, Tom.
Yes, but many years later, as a result of being told... Well, it matters because they would not have been traumatised but for being told that they had been abused.
So this is the point. You'd say that it's not the paedophile that's caused the abuse, it's the responsible authorities like the police and their parents.
Yes, absolutely.
So you don't accept that having sex with a child can cause any kind of...
Let me tell you, we're getting peculiarly hysterical. Many years later, when people are told that they have been abused and it keeps being rammed into them from the media all the time, then that is the feeling they come to get. They come to think, I must be traumatised because people keep telling me so.
Okay,
That's how it happened.
Can I put to you, there's something in your book.
Mm-hmm.
There's a section in your book where you describe the scenario of a little girl sitting on a man's knee.
Yes.
And you describe approvingly how sexual relations with that little girl can be, quote, negotiated by hints and signals, such as complimenting her on her knickers and testing her response.
Yeah.
And what would be the adequate response from that little girl, Tom?
Enthusiasm.
What would that constitute? How would the little girl show you enthusiasm for you wanting to have sex with her?
Let's move away from...
No. Let's stick to this issue.
Well, all right. Let's stick with the issue, but let me address it in my own way.
The little girl's sitting on your knee, and you've just told her, I like your knickers.
Let me address it in my own way.
What does that little girl do to indicate that she's willing to consent to have sex with you, Tom?
How does somebody indicate willingness to have consent to anything?
A little girl cannot possibly be a consenting partner in that kind of power relationship, she's sitting on your knee, for God's sake.
Yes,
You're
she
an
can.
adult.
Yes, she can.
You use the term enthusiasm. What does that little girl do to indicate that she's enthusiastic?
I think that we're going round and round in circles.
No, what is the answer?
We're going round and round in circles. I've given you my answer multiple times, so I'll finish there.
Which is a non-answer. You just can't answer.
Well, you think it's a non-answer. I think it's an answer.
Okay, so that is from a predator's perspective. I do a lot of work on offender narrative, so I read study after study after study. I read what these predators say, how they choose their victim, how they manipulate the child, how they, point at their target and stuff like that. Now I'm going to flip it now, and I'm going to show you something very disturbing. I've hidden the image because obviously I don't want to exploit anyone. But now you're going to see this from the child's perspective. You are going to see a child engaging in what they believe is good touch. You're going to watch a child who believes that this is something good, they like it, it feels good. This are these policies in practice. A child can never differentiate between a good and bad secret. A child can never differentiate between good and bad touch.
Now that's got both of us. So, you're wanting to continue with touching me, is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
Continue doing sexual stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Why?
Because I like it.
You like it.
And because it feels good.
Because it feels good.
And it feels good like it feels good to you.
It does feel good to me, although I become much more uncomfortable with the idea of doing it since you are 6 and I'm also your dad. And I'm wanting to have more people aware of this conversation, specific people who are able to handle this, because I want them to know that you're wanting to do it with me. And I've talked with 2 of my...
So in a desperate bid to get attention from the Welsh Government, I sent that to some ministers of the Senedd. I expected my door to be kicked through, police coming through my house looking for that child, because I sent that video with the child's image. You could see the child and the father. Nobody has come to my house. So there you have it. You have the predator's perspective, comprehensive sexuality education from a young age, needs and wishes, pleasurable feelings. And then you get the teachers telling you this safeguards. No teacher in the UK has ever undergone training for institutional child sex abuse. Institutional child sex abuse is abuse at schools. So we're sending children into schools which are littered with abusers. The people there aren't even trained or aware of what's going on, yet they are the ones that's going to keep our children safe. They are teaching children good touch, bad touch. Differentiate between good secrets, bad secrets, no touch. It is as simple as that. A child only knows what we tell them.
They're also encouraging children to speak confidently about their genitalia, and that's another safeguarding issue because predators actually love that as well.
Well, you could see with Tom O'Carroll, he looks for enthusiasm, confidence, That's the predator's words. I can say it till I'm blue in the face. It's never going to impact you in the same way as when you hear it from them. So here we are. This is age appropriate. We're back now to the RSE code. This is the Welsh Government documentation. It's age appropriate, developmentally appropriate. We push the government. We want an assessment tool. We want an assessment tool to determine the developmental appropriateness in this child. They simply cannot provide one. Do you know why? Because it does not exist. But here from their documentation, we got developmental phases. Phase 1, age 3 to 6. Phase 2, age 7 to 10. Phase 3, age 11 and above. Can you see the net is widening all the time? I just want to bring your attention to consent. We get told, children are being taught how to consent because they need something from their pencil case, or they don't want to give grandma a kiss. We've also seen teachers put out videos saying how this is a new concept to children. They don't understand this word, it's a new thing. We get told time and time again this is not for sex. So you look there at phase 3. Understanding of the importance of consent. for safe and healthy relationships, and in particular, sexual relationships. So I'll ask you this. Phase 3 to phase 2, what's the difference between an 11-year-old and a 10-year-old? They both got the same sexual rights. What's the difference between the 7-year-old and the 6-year-old? They've both got the same sexual and reproductive rights. We are treading on dangerous ground here, and I wholeheartedly advise you all, you never ever teach a child how to consent. The only person you're empowering is the predator. You teach your child an empowering no. No. Because that no is much harder to break down than when you're negotiating. Teach your child no. Privates are private, no touch, no look, no talk.
Okay, so what has the government response been? So as we stated earlier, us PCP Wales, Public Child Protection Wales, our supporters and many others have been writing to the government, writing to local authorities and writing to schools with regards to this RSE over the course of the last 3 years. So what has their response been? Well, they've been very, very dishonest. Welsh Government have kept putting out statements time and time again that this education is age and developmentally appropriate. It's all about inclusivity, acceptance, stop bullying. They come out with all this thing. They have been very dishonest. They've been very dismissive of the public. They've also sent out false accusations, particularly about ourselves, saying that we are the ones spreading misinformation. They called us liars when we talked about the global rollout. They called us liars when we said that they're going to be bringing in inappropriate content into the schools. So then, lack of evidence. Where is the evidence to prove that their education is what it says it's meant to do? They keep claiming that it's meant to safeguard the children. Where is the evidence? Where is the evidence that talking about correct terminology safeguards children? There is no evidence whatsoever, yet they still claim and they still train their teachers, tell their teachers that this is all about safeguarding, keeping them safe. No democracy. The public have not had a say. The Welsh Government did they've done 2 consultations. I think one was in 2019, the other in 2020. Yep. They did 2 consultations with regards to this RSE before it reached the schools. Now, there was an overwhelming, nearly 88% of people who were involved in that consultation. They said they did not agree with the RSE, particularly with the no parental opt-out. This was completely ignored. The following consultation didn't even mention RSE, yet over 60% of people actually mentioned it and said they did not want it. So there we have it, no democracy. This is more like a dictatorship. The government are dictating to us, the teachers, dictating what our children are learning in the schools. Intimidation threats. So the intimidation threats was when Kimberly and 4 other claimants took them to court. When they weren't able to pay the monies straight away, there were threats sent to Kimberly's email asking about their assets and also asking about the assets of the organisation. So basically they were threatening to take all our assets if we hadn't paid those court fines straight away. And there we have it, the lawyers' threats against the claimant's assets. So altogether, the government have been very dishonest. The government haven't been working for the public, and that is what our government is meant to be doing.
And we have our Prime Minister. If any of you follow politics, you would have seen these debates are now going on in Parliament. You would see the facts of our case are coming into mainstream media now. And then we got Rishi Sunak. He'll protect our kids from radical sex ed. Next year. He believes children can wait to be safeguarded. So, Rishi Sunak, if anybody believes that's going to affect us here in Wales, we've had it in writing from Jamie Wallace MP that what happens in England will not affect us here in Wales. However, we have formed a UK coalition. So whatever happens in any country in the UK will be happening to us all. We can guarantee you that.
So what can you do, the public? We did sort of brief over this earlier. Please do subscribe to our website. Our website's there, publicchildprotectionwales.org. If you subscribe, you'll receive some emails. We don't go overboard with emails. We'll just keep you up to date with events or any progress that is happening. And then move on to this slide here. As I said before, raise awareness and talk to people daily. There's still a lot of people who are unaware of what's going on. And when you do speak to people, you are going to get backlash, especially if you end up speaking to teachers, because there are some teachers out there who think they know it all. So ask questions. Instead of making statements, ask them the questions. Ask them if they know that this comes from a global rollout. Ask them where the research comes from, where they say they are safeguarding the children, because I'm telling you now, they will not be able to answer the questions. So really get yourselves informed, really understand what's going on, and then you can ask the questions, and then you'll really see how clueless these people who are teaching our children about sex really are. So hand out leaflets. We've got quite a few leaflets. This leaflet here, this actually went viral. One of our supporters up north went a little bit sort of post-happy with these leaflets and posted them, put them all in envelopes and just posted them everywhere.
She did. If you can see, this leaflet here has got a 16 sticker on it. We do not allow these to be posted through doors unless they're in envelopes. So we're very strict to that. So yes, I just have to point out that they went in envelopes.
And because it went viral, it got picked up by a newspaper. I'm not sure what newspaper it was, but it was a local paper. It got picked up there saying that it was full of misinformation. Every single thing on this leaflet, it's not misinformation. We've just taken info from the official documents, and we're telling you exactly what has been going on throughout the UK. Then we've got safeguard your children. So as Kim was saying earlier, teach them how and when to raise the alarm. So if they are in a lesson and they feel uncomfortable, you empower your child to say, no, I don't want to listen to this. I'm not happy with this. You tell them they will not get in trouble if they express this to their teacher.
If you've got a younger child, now I've got two children, both completely different, one would, one wouldn't. If you do have a younger child who has a bit of courage, when these discussions come about correct terminology, teach your child to shout, no, privates are private. The rest of the children in that class will understand what's going on is not correct. And they will say this safeguards, you ask them for that research. There is none out there. It does not safeguard.
And then we do encourage for parents to go to the schools and express their concerns. Now, if you do go to the schools or phone at the school, please do follow up with an email, because you want everything in writing. So if anything was to happen, you can actually demonstrate that this was done in writing, and keep a diary as well of things that are happening, things that your children are saying. So make sure that you keep that diary, every day that it's happening, just so, you can actually build a case on this. Because if your children are being taught anything inappropriate, or they're getting upset by anything, then you do actually have a case against the school themselves.
And we do actually have a legal team waiting for you as well, okay? So we do have a high-profile international human rights barrister, and they are ready. They are ready to run with this. Your children can have their own cases as well. Your children will be kept anonymous. Your children will be automatically awarded legal aid. So this is something that we are really proud of here. Wales is the only country in the world that can say, we have all of our local authorities active and fighting. No other country in the world can say that. So what we do is we apply the pressure to the local authority, right to the Department of Education and all councillors. We also have WhatsApp groups. We encourage you all to get together within your local authority, meet each other, coffee mornings, just get out there, get discussing this stuff. This one here. We need to start a movement, okay? Only a movement is going to win this, guys. You need to join us for demonstrations, presentations, arrange your own. Organize meetups, coffee mornings, network. Networking is important because they will make you think you are alone. You are not alone, okay? The world is up in arms over this. Knowledge is power. Read up on the case law. Watch the YouTube videos and use them to your advantage. Join PCPW in forming a UK-wide coalition and make this kingdom the safest place for raising and educating children. So I do want to say just one thing. We have had a few visits to Parliament. We have been connecting with people. We are aware of the other court cases going on as well. We are engaging with them. We are currently about to put together some training packages, advocacy training, independent advocacy, social advocacy, education advocacy, most important of all, child advocacy. So we are actively seeking people who are DBS checked or who would like to go through the DBS process, take part in this training and help empower individuals in this country. We do have the tools to take this the distance. That case law is there. We need to use it to our advantage. So we are going to be... The system is flawed, okay? And advocacy is actually a credential-less profession. And this gap in the market lets bad people in. Well, this gap will also let the good people in. We need to use this opportunity, okay? I will myself be a child advocate because no school is going to let me in with a parent. But when a child contacts me, the law is on the side of the child. So if anyone's interested in this training, this advocacy training, we do in England, Ireland, Scotland and Wales, 4 different packages. We're going to educate the entire country, give everyone the confidence to stand up for themselves. And when they can stand up for themselves, we can all stand together and stand with each other. And only then will we see a difference.
Okay, so we've kept this this slide in here because when Kim and the 4 other claimants were going through the court case, we had to raise money. So we've had a number, well, we had a phenomenal amount of events and people just coming forward and challenging themselves. There's a picture there of Darren who did a number of events. He was doing a 140-mile walk there in Wales to raise money. On the side there, we've got a skate-a-thon. There was quite a large handful of us who were down Aberavon beachfront doing a 24-hour skate-a-thon. And there were many other fun events that were taking place to raise money. We did raise in excess of 100,000, so we were able to see the court through. Woo! And even though we didn't win, it didn't go in our favour, it did give us a lot of publicity, a lot more awareness, and also the judgment is there. The judge has emphasised that this education is to be age and developmentally appropriate. So it is there for a good reason. Even though we did lose this time, it is really providing case law for the public as a whole.
So we have shut down the fundraiser now for the legal fees because the fundraiser was simply for legal fees. We're still raising money for leaflets. We provide the country with the leaflets because obviously you print them in bulk, is cheaper. So we send leaflets around the country. We are currently working with 17 other groups, parent groups in the UK, to form a coalition. We'll be scrapping our leaflets, taking our logos off, and we're putting together a universal booklet which will be okay for all 4 countries, and we want to see every single group now in the UK accessing these leaflets and getting them out there. So I think we are the most established out of the parent groups. So obviously we do have more resources. We are sharing these resources with every single group out there. If they've got 17 people, 70 people or 7,000 people, we're ensuring everybody's at the same stage. And by the people sponsoring us and sending us money in, we are able to do this. We are able to get this stuff out there, help, support and promote the smaller groups. And that brings us to the end of our presentation, guys. Adele will do the questions with you. Nothing is out of bounds. We are not the government. You can ask what you want, when you want, how you want.
And I just want to say, like Kim said earlier, and I can't reiterate it more, especially having a daughter myself who I won't get into now, has experienced, some things in her life. There is nothing more important than what you teach your child first.
Yeah.
My daughter has known the correct terminology for her genitals since we've been talking about genitals, which surprisingly is quite early, because children, as Kiwi said, they touch. It makes no difference where it is on the body, the bottom of the foot, or in between their legs. They touch, they ask questions. Be honest with your child. And that is the best thing you can do for you, because I know, in particular for my daughter, like Kim said, if you've got one child who will sit in that class and say, hang on, I've been told my privates are private. Because I can tell you, in these lessons, and I will just say, pants, NSPCC pants lessons, which your children will learn from nursery, this now includes genitalia. And I am thankful that my daughter was able to sit in that lesson and say, I'm not allowed to tell you the nickname. I'm not allowed to tell you what mine is called, because I have been taught my privates are private. Okay, she didn't say it like that, but we got around it in that way. Teach your child yourself. All parents need the empowerment to teach and educate their child themselves.
And if anybody needs any help, like I said, I'm really highly qualified and trained in this field. I will come and have awkward chats. I've got additional needs child myself. I've had to have these conversations earlier. I'm here to help. Please phone, email. I'll do anything to protect your children, because your children aren't just your children. They are our children. Children are the future. The future's not tomorrow or next year. The future is the world we leave behind, and when we leave this world behind, there's people in it. We shape those people, and if I can do anything to make the situation better for you or for your child to speak to, you better believe I will. So will Adele, and so will Lucia. You are what you do, not what you say you do. We do travel around the country supporting parents. There is nothing we will not do for you, a child.
Thank you so much, guys. We're going to wrap it up now, but we're going to be hanging around here for the next while. So if you want to come talk to us yourselves, please do. And thank you again so much for giving up your time to come here tonight and learn about the future of your children's education. Thank you.
Thank you all.